Oh, let me pull this up. I should have had it ready to go. Rise to the top with Valor Energy and their new partnership with the Professional Fighters League. Fueling champions inside and outside the smart cage, Valor's nitrogen-infused orange cream and blueberry tart delivers a smooth, creamy flavor with 175 milligrams of natural caffeine to fuel your day. Ready to rise to the top? Grab your Valor Energy drink today, available on Amazon. I wish I had a Valor Energy drink to stay awake through some of these fights. Take it away, Keith. Can't hear you, Keith. Maybe it's me.
Oh, sorry. I had my. This is what happens when we do things live, guys. It's 1:37 a.m. on the East Coast. This shit kind of happens. This is the Sherdog live recap show for UFC 312. We had two big title fights go down in Sydney, Australia. I'm your host. My name is Keith Shillan. Joining me, as always, is the baby face, no beard, looking good, looking like a I don't know, Francisco Prado. Like, this guy's looking young. Ben Duffy, how you doing, my man?
Hey, I'm short and burly, but I'm not Francisco Prado short and burly. I'm feeling pretty good. Clean shaven for the first time in, I think it's been like 11 years.
Wow.
But yeah, just figured, lost a little weight recently. Figured I'd celebrate having just one chin again. So yeah, we'll see how long it lasts.
Yeah, you definitely tell you lost the weight. That's that BJJ going good for you. So I'm the opposite of Ben. Everyone knows I am a energy drink junkie. I could use a Valor right now. I'm really sick, guys, so I apologize. I started getting sick today. I've been sick all day. I got like a cough and sneezing, and I don't know. Hopefully it's not the flu coming. Plus, I apologize ahead of time if we have any technical difficulties. I have like a blizzard going on right now outside, so hopefully I don't lose any Wi-Fi. But we'll get right to it. Shout out to all the people in the chat. Bring back Jeff Sherwood and Jordan Breen. We'll throw it up there. No way either one of those guys would stay up this late to watch these fights anymore. So let's get right into it. UFC 312. We'll try to get to as many in the chat as possible. Main event, we had Dricus du Plessis taking on Sean Strickland in the big grudge match rematch. The rematch not too many people were calling for. Dricus du Plessis wins a unanimous decision. I will say this about Dricus du Plessis. This dude does enough to just, like tonight, he did just enough to win rounds, while Strickland was doing everything possible just to lose rounds.
Yeah. Obviously, these guys came in with 25 minutes of relevant experience for each other. I mean, they each had at least one fight in between, but they're effectively the same fighters they were 13 months ago. Dricus du Plessis clearly went back to the drawing board and made a few minor adjustments. And he's the guy who won the first fight, but made a few minor adjustments intended to not leave it in any doubt. He didn't want another 47-48, 48-47 splitter. And so it felt as though he made some minor adjustments to his approach the first time, which I didn't really see out of Strickland. Like, Sean Strickland sticks with what brought him to the dance, I would say almost to a fault.
Yes. So du Plessis, the thing about him is, I mean, he fights exactly opposite of Strickland. He's not technical. He kind of lets things go. He's very herky-jerky. He's moving side to side, throwing a kick on this side, coming back with a left hook, on this side, throwing another kick back here. He just kept staying busy. And then Strickland, on the other hand, he's trying to be technical. But I go back to the first fight where he says, "Oh, I gave away rounds because I didn't have any volume. And then the fifth round, I had my best round because I just bit down on my mouthpiece and threw a lot more and threw a lot of power shots trying to get a knockout. And that's when I had my best moments. I got to do stuff like that." So he acknowledged that's the best thing he did, and then did the complete opposite tonight. Like, he did not have the fifth round. I'm going to bite down on my mouthpiece. I mean, this is how Strickland fights, but you still think like, no, he's got to know this is not the right thing to do. I just like what Strickland, excuse me, what Duplessis doing. I think Strickland's best moment was right at the very end of the third round. He started landing some good shots on Duplessis. He's probably down 2-0. He's he's about to be down 3 rounds. He kind of steps on the gas a little bit. And what I love what Duplessis did was he shot for a takedown. It was like his only one he shot for a takedown. He got a takedown. And it wasn't to really get Strickland down and hold him down. It was simply to secure a round and stop the momentum that Strickland was starting to get. And he put a stop to it like immediately.
Yes. Again, Dricus du Plessis is the best terrible fighter in the world. He is the smartest dumb fighter in the world. And you put it perfectly. Like I was on duty tonight writing the recaps for Sherdog, and I said anytime that Strickland looked in danger of really getting the jab going, really getting into a rhythm, Duplessis did something to disrupt that rhythm. Threw a body kick, tried for a takedown. He came out of the first fight understanding that Strickland is very beatable if you don't let him turn it into a Sean Strickland fight. And if you do let him turn it into a Sean Strickland fight, he's almost unbeatable. He did exactly what he needed to do to win. And obviously, busting Strickland's nose wide open in the 4th round was it was the most memorable part of the fight. And it certainly made it harder for Strickland to do anything in the last 7 or 8 minutes of the fight to turn things around. But that's never been Strickland's game anyway. Like, you're Eric Nixick, you're squatting in front of, honestly, one of your best pupils heading into the 5th round. You're a truthful guy. You tell him you're behind in the cards. You need to finish this thing. There are not many top fighters less well equipped to finish a fight on demand than Sean Strickland.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Duplessis, on the other hand, doesn't get enough credit for his power. I mean, again, we saw him. He didn't have big moments tonight, but he had enough where he broke Sean Strickland's nose, where Strickland has to sit there and reset his nose in the middle of a round.
Dude, right before he did that, I was in the Sherdog Slack as we're going along and keeping all the things going, and I said, can we take a minute to appreciate how fucking tough Sean Strickland is? Because to that point in the fight, again, before the nose breaking, Duplessis had landed at least 3 punches and 1 spinning back elbow that would have at least dropped just about any other middleweight on the planet. Like, I don't know if it would have finished the fight, but shots similar to the ones that he used to put Adesanya in a bunch of trouble to finish Whitaker, Strickland just, I mean, jokes aside, like, it's easy to make jokes about the contents of Sean Strickland's skull, but the guy just shrugs off artillery. It took breaking his nose to make him even really react. It's just unbelievable how tough Sean Strickland is.
Yeah, and it seemed like he just wanted to reset it. It's not that he was like trying like he was that big, or he just wanted to reset it, which I understand that. Strickland, sorry, again, guys, I apologize. Strickland must be so frustrating to coach because, I'm thinking about Eric Nixick, who might be the best coach in MMA. I mean, he's definitely in the conversation.
Yeah.
You train a guy probably about 2.5, 3 months for a fight, I'm sure they were kind of thinking and be well before the fight was booked, even before the Costa fight was booked, what they did wrong in the first fight, how to fix it, probably worked on a bunch of things, talked about picking up the volume, talked about all these different things. Fly all the way across the world to, I don't know how long a flight is to Australia, but I mean, I'm sure it's probably like 12 hours or something like that,
Yeah.
Changing time zones, changing your schedule, changing everything. Build up for the fight, all the talk, Strickland saying crazy shit, and then he puts on. I was thinking of recent title challenge, main event pay-per-view performances. There are people who have bad performances where they get smoked, but I don't blame them because sometimes somebody's just way better than them. That's just what like take the co-main event, Tatiana Suarez. But the time we're just way better than her.
Mm-hmm.
but she was trying. Strickland, on the other hand, to me is one of the worst performances I've seen in a title fight in recent memory because he did nothing. Like he had no will to win that fight. And
yeah, and there's plenty of people in the chat, saying, he quit, he fought like he was scared. I'm not sure Sean Strickland is scared of anything or anyone, but it's what we come back to a lot of times in situations like this. Especially if you're as experienced a fighter as Sean Strickland is, he's won a lot, he's lost a lot at the highest levels. On some level, he clearly recognized it. He didn't have it, and Sean Strickland. He just doesn't have another gear that he can pull to. Like, I think if he came out and just started throwing wild haymakers, I don't. Yeah, there, Evan Granado. Thank you for putting it more succinctly than me. He only has one gear, and if it's enough, you're gonna have a bad night. If it's not enough, he kind of is.
So a lot of people know that I coach my son's wrestling team, but I'm not the head coach. One thing I've learned from the head coach, I absolutely love what he does, and we have a huge team. We probably have like 100 wrestlers on the team, and there's a bunch of coaches. But one thing he'll do is if he's yelling instruction out to a wrestler and he's just not doing what he tells him to, he just stops talking. He just sits there and stares at the guy and doesn't talk anymore. And then when he comes back, he goes, well, if you're not going to listen to me, why am I saying anything? I'm sure Eric Nixick felt like that because it was just falling on deaf ears when he's like, dude, you're giving way around. You have to pick up the volume. And Strickland's like, yeah. And then he just does. It was almost like his volume went down, between like rounds 2, 3. I mean, obviously 4 is the one where he got hurt, but I think about 2 and 3, and it was just like, dude, what the? I think about, like, I also coach my daughter's softball team, and this one girl who's been on our team forever, and they don't listen to the show, so I'm not gonna say her name, but these girls aren't watching the show. But there's one girl that she just refuses to charge ground balls, and we scream at her all the time, like, charge a ground ball, and I'm just like, I've been telling her this for 5 fucking years. Like, she's not gonna charge a ground ball. What am I saying to her? That's how I remember when I was in Buffalo when Anthony Rumble Johnson's team walked out on him, and I'm like, I would understand if someone walked out on a Strickland, like, and if we call a spade, if Strickland didn't have this big controversial personality, he'd have no fans. Like, those fans in Australia who were like cheering him, like, oh, we love Sean Strickland. Really? What do you love about him? Like, yeah, I understand, like, he might say, like, off the cuff things that you're not supposed to say. Okay.
Yeah.
But fighting wise, who's more boring than Sean Strickland?
Oh, I checked while you were kind of running things down. The flight from LA to Sydney is 15 hours and 15 minutes, and I would rather take that than.
That's what it felt like. That's what I felt like this fight was. I felt like it was a 15-hour, and I'm not blaming Duplessis. Duplessis was winning, and like, what he's doing enough volume, but there's only so much. All right, there you go. Mario Batista. Mario Batista had one bad outing. He had one bad outing against Jose Aldo.
Yeah, and you know what? Lots of people have one terrible outing against Jose Aldo. Yeah. Like Jonathan Martinez, Pedro Munoz. Lots of normally exciting fighters have a rough time against Jose Aldo.
But get my point.
Plessis, it's hard to get DDP into a boring fight.
No, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you've seen this guy fight, and he has wars, and he's an action fighter, and he was just being busy, and he was just like, it's kind of like a team that keeps running the ball instead of throwing. It's like, well, if every single time we hand the ball off, we get 6 yards of carry. Yeah, it might be boring, and we got to run the clock, but why else would I do anything else?
But Strickland is somebody that's still running for 3 yards in a cloud of dust when his team is down like 41-3 in the fourth quarter.
So, yeah, exactly. So that's a very good point. So one of my son's teammates was in the middle school states, and he was winning the other day, and he like took a kid down, and the kid was near out of bounds, and they were doing the out of bounds rule. One leg is in bounds.
Okay.
Then the action still continues. And I don't know how many seconds. There might be 40 seconds left. He's up by 4 or 5 points. Like, he's winning, but he's not. He's not a huge lead, and he's got a foot in. And I remember one of the dads was like, "I just push him out." I'm like, no, stay right where you are. I'm like, stay where you are. Keep your foot right where it is. I'm yelling at him, keep your foot right there, because his opponent was kind of resting for a second, and he's just letting the clock lay down. I'm like, it's gonna be boring, but you're gonna win the state championship. Just keep your foot right in bounds. And that's how I felt like Duplessis. Yeah, this is not how he wants. Duplessis wants to have this war, but he also wants to be the champion.
Yeah.
And
but
he just
having said that, in the 5th round, knowing that he was in all likelihood prohibitively ahead, the dude is not on his bike. He's not doing anything to protect the lead. He's going right out. If anything, more aggressively than before. He's still throwing kicks to the body. He's still still doing all the things that got him there.
He had it.
For what it's worth. Yeah. For what it's worth. Yeah. He threw a head kick right after somebody in the Sherdog Slack commented that he'd abandoned the head kicks after like a round and a half, and like right on cue, he throws one. He did everything possible to have one guy or the other finish the fight. He left it open if Strickland wanted to do something different. He kept on. I mean, Strickland is a hard guy to finish.
And he was doing like spinning back kicks and stuff. He was trying to have like a highlight reel type moment. The problem is, and I think he was able to do like, big high kicks and spinning back fists and stuff that you take a chance if the guy's coming back at you, but the way Strickland throws, it's like, yeah, worst case scenario, I eat a jab. Like, okay. Like, yes. He has there was no concern on Duplessis' side of what Strickland was throwing back.
Right.
Like, there was no threat.
Yeah. Like the worst thing that happens is you eat a jab and a 1-2. Maybe you have to, get back, regroup, shake your head a little bit. You're back in. A lot of people in the top 10 of the middleweight division, even people that Strickland has beaten, people that are not as good as Strickland, could make someone like Dricus Duplessis pay a lot more for a single defensive lapse.
Yeah, and I think about recently, when you think about the guys who are controversial and they say things you're not supposed to say, and everyone knows, listen, guys, I'm not taking a stand on what he says, or pro or anti. Like, I'm not a snowflake. That don't really offend me what he says, but like him and Colby Covington have both become this like low up. I mean, Covington's game used to be high volume. Yeah, obviously a lot of wrestling, but he was. I mean, I think about even like his loss against the first loss against Usman. I think about RDA fights. Like, he had exciting moments, and both these guys now are like, yeah, jump on the mic and say stuff, but it's like the way you talk, you fight completely opposite now.
I love that you brought this up, because I was trying to think, is there a person in the history of the sport whose persona and then fight style are more polar opposite than Strickland? Because Strickland talks like prime Mike Perry, just kind of unhinged, wild, controversial stuff that I don't think he's really saying to be controversial. He's just a moderately educated dude who has been to, he got a history degree from University of YouTube and has got some shit to say. But then he goes out and fights like end stage Rory McDonald, where it's just 12 jabs around. And if that's enough, great. If not, what can I say?
But like try Star would be so proud of him, just jabbing and I mean, I think of Colby Covington that way. Another guy that would talk a big game but fought completely different, Ben Askren. Yeah. Well, I mean, at least Ben Askren would still win. Mm-hmm. It's hard. Like, how would you grade Duplessis' performance? Not the fight, just his performance.
On some level, it's a pass-fail. You're the champ. You're still the champ. Pass. If you want me to get down, I'd give him an A.
Oh, wow.
I mean, he won again. He won the first time around.
Yeah. And
he did all the things that got him there, and then just tightened it up a little bit and won with like less doubt this time.
Yeah, and I think when history, and I was kind of baiting, and I thought you were going to say it's like a C, and then I was going to counter with a much higher grade. He 50-45 the title challenger, former champion, the guy who won the title, who had a back and forth fight where, I was looking today on MMA decisions, and it was like 13 of us scored it for Duplessis, and like 12 people scored it for Strickland. It was that close.
Right.
I think I scored the first fight for Duplessis. I think you scored the first fight for Strickland, but it was super, super close. One guy changes, it could be the other way. So go from that to a 50-45 performance.
And we'll probably kind of touch on this as we talk about what's next for these guys, but Dricus du Plessis, considering who he's already beaten and how, what the rest of the division looks like, and the people that might be coming down the pike for him in the next 12, 18, 24 months, assuming he keeps winning, he is going to back right into the discussion of the greatest middleweight of all time, while like you think about it. I'm assuming that Alex Pereira is never going to weigh 185 pounds again in his life. Like, yeah, unless God forbid he gets some like sort of wasting disease, but competitively never going to weigh 185 again. So if he's out of the picture, but Duplessis faces people like Chimaev, Imavov, Bahalio, in the next year or two, he's putting together a resume that's going to get him at least on the Mount Rushmore of this division, while people like me, myself, are like, he's just kind of a lousy fighter who keeps finding ways to win. Like,
well, I mean, obviously, Anderson Silva has that top spot, and Adesanya the second spot. But the one thing I'll say about Duplessis, his rise to the title was much harder than Anderson Silva's. I mean, Anderson Silva fought 2 fights. It was Chris Lieben, then the title.
Yeah, that was it.
So, it would be pretty incredible to one day pass Anderson Silva, but I mean, that number 3 spot is right there. He might already have it based on the run he had to go through. I mean, like I think about like Rich Franklin, like what he had to do to get the title. Like he fought Ken Shamrock at light heavyweight and then fought for the title against Evan Tanner.
I mean,
other guys,
and you would remember, if other people don't, that the division was so bad at the time that the UFC basically begged him to go down to 185 and install some stability there.
Yeah, Evan Tanner won the title against David Terrell.
David Terrell, a 5-1 fighter at the time, and he was a massive favorite over Tanner, who had like 35 career fights. Anyway, no history lessons tonight.
Yeah, we're not gonna. Yeah, we won't go too far down there. So let's talk. So Duplessis had this like moment where he's, I guess, apparently Alex Pereira was there, and he was staring down Pereira, and he was saying like, "Is there no one else?" He was trying to do the who is that guy? Brad Pitt moment from
Troy.
Troy, yeah. Which was cool, but I mean, it's got to be Chimaev, right? Oh, we got into a week ago, but I'm doing Chimaev.
And I totally get that. Like, again, I get and I understand the reasons why you would put Chimaev first. It's not ridiculous competitively, and on a lot of the intangibles, it's the better choice. It's much more sellable than Imavov. Yeah, I get it. Like, and I'm not mad. It's not a travesty. It's not a miscarriage of justice. But like there's an embarrassment of riches there, because that means once they settle it, Imavov is going to be there waiting with a really good claim. If Bahalio gets past Cannonier next month, he's got a great case. Who knows what's I probably shouldn't even go there, but with the disintegration of Bellator, maybe Johnny Eblen will be on the market. Like, there's all kinds of wild stuff that could happen.
Going off the Troy reference, Sean Strickland talks like he fights like Eric Bana's character, when in reality he fought like Orlando Bloom's character. Yeah, we already did the. I mean, if they want to do the Marvel, I mean, so be it. I thought Chimaev should have got it before Strickland. I didn't think Strickland kind of deserved it. I think they kind of were at. I think they might have been hoping Strickland would win the title back, and then the fight between Strickland and Imavov. I mean, can imagine the shit that Strickland would say to Imavov. What do you do with Strickland now? I'm so done with him.
I'm done with him. And because he's already fought so many of the people in the top 10, you almost have to go down and use him to test an up and coming guy. You know,
Okay.
like if Gregory Rodriguez wins, maybe throw that one out there.
You're going way higher than me. When I say I'm done with him. I'm like, dude, just give him fucking Jack Hermanson in a meaningless fight.
They've
Nobody
already
cares.
fought in the meaningless fight.
Give me another one.
Oof.
I don't care. Like, I don't care. Give me, like, I don't want to put him against Brennan Allen and Fluffy Hernandez winner. Or, okay, yeah. You know what? You sold me. Give him a RoboCop.
Yeah, either that or give him Nickel. If he kills Nickel with nothing but a jab in a 5-round fight, I'll stop talking about Bo Nickel every week.
Okay, fair enough. I'll still talk about him.
I don't think you need to worry. I think
we'll get to the co-main. Can I do a rant first? Can I do a rant before we talk about?
Away.
All right, yeah. I got to go back because I know the guy's trolling me. But where's his name? I apologize. I got to pull it up. I didn't ignore. I'm going to pull this one up. I know he was trolling me. I think I already missed it. This is great entertainment. I mean, you always have friggin' Bob Simpson and all his trolling, but where's the guy? Anyways, somebody was like basically calling American wrestling shit.
Oh, good grief!
Because Weili Zhang beat Tatiana Suarez. Yeah, cool. Tatiana Suarez was a world-class wrestler. 17 fucking years ago. 17 years ago. Kenny Blades would come in and fucking throw Weili Zhang on our head. Like, stop.
Yes.
Like, this is the problem with American wrestling. They don't come over. Nobody does. I mean, I'll be honest. Bo Nickel wasn't the top American wrestler. I mean, David Taylor didn't come over. Like, Spencer Lee is not coming to American wrestling. I mean, from American wrestling to UFC. Dude, Bo Bassett is getting paid more money by Iowa than probably anybody in the UFC. Maybe besides John Jones. They're not coming. Why would they? Why would you come and get punched in the face when they want to go on in their peak to wrestle in the Olympics and stay on the? I mean, even guys who've shown interest eventually don't even come over. I mean, think about Kyle Snyder. He talked about coming to MMA, never did. I mean, Jordan Burroughs was rumored forever. I think about
what's his name? The heavyweight
Bravo
cat.
Young. Romo Bravo Young, who's thinking about now he's on the international scene for Mexico. It's like they don't come over because why would they? You know how much money they make, like doing seminars and shit. It's why Gregor Gillespie came and he
never came back.
Because he makes way more money just like coming to a wrestling practice.
$300 an hour to do a wrestling clinic that get hero worshipped by a bunch of cauliflower-eared kids. Like, why would you do that instead of getting? Why wouldn't you do that instead of getting head kicked by Kevin Lee?
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
Gable Stevenson. Thank you, boss. Yeah, he actually tested the waters. He talked to Bellator, probably talked with the UFC, and was like, I'm okay.
Yeah. Anyways, so let's hear about Weili Zhang versus Tatiana Suarez. Weili Zhang won a unanimous decision. Let's talk about Weili before we get to Tatiana. Weili looks so good, so fast, so powerful. What really impressed me is in her last fight against Yan Xiaonan, there was signs of decline. And then it just like happened. Like, no, it's not signs of decline. Just not everyone is perfect all the time. And that's what happened. Like, not everyone can be a 10. I mean, there's times LeBron James scores 20 points instead of 30.
Yes.
And that's kind of what I felt like this was. There's a time, peak Peyton Manning threw interception, peak Aaron Rodgers threw interceptions, Patrick Mahomes throws interceptions. That's what I felt like that was. At her worst performance recently, she still dominated a fight. And that was not the case. This was one of her most impressive moments of her career, which is pretty crazy considering all the moments she's had. I was blown away by her performance in it.
Me too. There is something especially admirable, especially respectable, and I mean, if you look at it this way, like kind of inspiring about fighters who continue to improve after they're already the best in the world. Weili Zhang is one of those, and there aren't many of them. Like a lot of the greatest fighters of all time, they were great, and they made it to the top, and they stayed there until their physical gifts started to decline or until someone better came along. There's nothing wrong with that. but there's something especially admirable about 10 years after cleaning out a non-existent division, like Chris Cyborg was still becoming a better technical striker. You know, Weili Zhang, as great as she is, 5 or 6 years ago, she ran on pure physical horsepower and aggression a lot more than she does now. Here, like in the way that she beat Suarez, and yes, I mean, she was clearly just the better fighter and basically dominated every second of the fight after about the first 2 minutes. But the composure, the calm. This is a woman that's taken the best that the best strawweights in the world have had to throw at her for years now. Just nothing rattles her at all. She got taken down pretty quickly in this fight, got taken down straight into side control. No panic, no need to get it back. Just, okay, set up shop, see what she wants to do, wait for my opportunity, sweep, get back up to my feet, go to work. Let's not let her take us down again. She's entering that space where her skills are so good and her mindset and composure are so good that she's going to be an absolute nightmare to deal with until her physical traits really do start trailing off. And apparently that was a little premature because, yeah, as you pointed out, it looks like the non-fight or the Yan fight might just have been a single bad night at the office from a 34-year-old. Yeah. Can't say enough good about Zhang Weili right now.
Yeah, to me the fight was, I mean, right away when Tatiana got the takedown, she got it immediately. She got a body lock, slammed her. It was looking really good. To me, there was 2 moments that changed the entire fight. So in the first round, when Weili, after being held down and beat up a little bit, it wasn't like a lot of damage, but enough to win the round. I think most people gave Tatiana Suarez the first round. She was holding her down. Weili had a moment where she's looking for escape. Tatiana had this front headlock. Instead of what you do when you're in the front headlock, you pull the head to one position, you spin around, you kind of control. Instead of doing that, she tried to end the fight. She went for a guillotine, didn't have it. Weili ended up on top for about 45 seconds or so. She's riding on top. Again, she doesn't really do much damage either. I feel like that was a huge moment where if Tatiana stayed on top and was able to control Weili for the whole round, she might have sucked her spirit a little bit, saying like, I take you down, you're not going to get out. But that wasn't the case. The round ends with Weili on top. So to me, it was like a big even though Tatiana won the first round, it was a momentum swing where she's going to the corner, and it's, you won the round, but Weili's got the momentum at the end of that. Instead of her pulling, keeping Weili down the entire round, and I have the momentum. Guess what's happened? The second round, it's happened again. And then I think Tatiana made a huge mistake. She gets in right away. She has a chance to land a big takedown in the second, right against the cage, and she turned the corner, and instead of like turning back in, she drove forward towards the cage, and Weili bounced off the cage and landed on top of Tatiana Suarez. Suarez used all this energy to get the fight down, had the position, and then Weili ended up on top. And Weili, to her credit, she kind of hip heist through it and everything. That was a spirit. Like that, I felt like that moment changed the entire fight. It was over right then. And then you saw at the end, like I think about in the 5th round, it was Tatiana's last chance. She's down 3 rounds to 1. She really needs a stoppage. And really, if we're being honest, we break down her skill set. Her best chance of stoppage is get a scramble going and catch a submission.
Yeah, absolutely.
She works this thing. She gets Weili down. She's on her legs. And then suddenly Weili hip heists out and like wins the scramble in a position that Tatiana Suarez is going to win 99% of the times. And she just out hustled her. And you could see like Tatiana's like spirit was just like, she was done. She was crushed. Like you don't get out hustled there.
I agree. And especially because, you think about it. And, we both love this guy, but we talk about Merab Dvalishvili, where his takedown attack is so relentless and his top control is so poor, partly because he's so hyper and partly because he's a little small. But he does not get discouraged when he doesn't get a takedown or when someone pops back up, because it's just part of the rinse and repeat for him. But for Suarez, she had spent so much energy taking Weili down the first time and trying to take her down like kind of like second, third, fourth times, that when there was a takedown that she could have, should have had and didn't quite get it, and she's like, I just worked all my muscles so hard for like 30 seconds and got nothing out of it. That, I think, was extremely discouraging.
Yeah. And not only get nothing out of it, I got taken down. And then she had to work
and she ended up on top. And Bob Tinson is typing a lengthy epistolary rant here, but
he's blocked from the chat.
But he has a good point about
no, he doesn't.
The many injuries, the advancing age, all the health issues may actually be starting to tell on Suarez, because I mean, she's still strong as an ox, still extremely fundamentally sound, but that extra little bit of zip, like her entries looked a little slower tonight, because she used to be, I mean, obviously she's probably as good a technical wrestler as we've ever had in the women's divisions or in the discussion. But it used to be very unique that she was one of the few women that could get the trip and body lock type takedowns inside, but also had a nice smooth shot from the outside that just a lot of women who aren't good, that even are good wrestlers, don't have. That tonight, those looked a little slow.
Yeah, she's 34 years old, and she's had, I mean, knee surgeries, and neck surgeries, and back surgeries, and
cancer,
which kind of, you know, ruins her story. She had this amazing story. This was like the ending. If this was Hollywood, it would have ended with her winning the title and having a big emotional thing in the cage with crying and something. You know, talking about how, you know, she almost gave up on the sport, and you know, and she has some big emotional speech for young girls or something. Instead, we don't get that. We get her get absolutely dominated. Now, again, this is her first career loss. And they kept saying, you know, she could come back, and you know, I mean, Johnny, for what he's worth, you know, it's his job to promote, you know, the storyline that the UFC wants. And they're like, oh, we know she'll come back. And I'm like, do we? Like, do we know that? Like, she's 34, and she's an old 34. And people talk about, oh yeah, she was a world-class wrestler. Like, yeah, kind of. I mean, I shouldn't say kind of. She definitely was, but I mean, like, she didn't win the world championship. I mean, she took third once, which was, you know, pretty impressive. And the whole like thing about, I'm going to win multiple. I was going to win multiple Olympics. I mean, it's possible, but probably not. And that was 17 years ago. We're talking about 2000 or 18 years ago. It was 2008.
17 years ago.
17 years ago. 2008 is what we're talking about when she last was competing. And I know you want to see she was trying to get the 2012 Olympics. Okay. 13 years ago. I mean, 13. Who was 13 years ago? 2012. I mean, or 2008. Well, I mean, who was the best quarterback in the league in 2008? Donovan McNabb was like a all pro. Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, and we scoff at the UFC's talking heads for like talking about Sarah McMahon as a top wrestler like so late into her career. When was she a top wrestler? Right around the same time.
Sorry. I was looking at wasn't she 2000?
Yeah, but like it's the same kind of gap in time.
Yeah, like 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So again, this is not Kenny Blades, and just so you guys know, like, oh, why would they come over? I just looked this up. Amit Elor, who is a world class, like she might be the pound for pound best wrestler in the women's wrestler in the world. By the way, American. She's already has a net worth over $1 million. She's 20 years old. Show me a 20-year-old MMA fighter with a net worth over $1 million. Like, why would she come? She dominates everybody in wrestling and doesn't get punched in the face. And doesn't have to learn anything.
Yeah.
You know, learn anything new. Like, and then she could be doing seminars and everything for the rest of her life. Like, they don't, it's rare for someone like Jordan Burroughs and Ben Askren to start their own teams because you make more money traveling around. Like I know how much money Steve Mako made for coming to our team, and it's and Mako's like best friends with our coach, so he doesn't charge us compared to what he's charged another team that they went to. They make shitloads of money. So, like by the way, like we're talking about like 2008. Do you know who was second in MVP voting in 2008 in the NFL?
Adrian Peterson.
Chad Pennington.
Holy cow.
Chad Pennington took second in MVP. I mean, that year, Peyton Manning ran away with it, but Chad Pennington. Like,
wow.
That's yeah. So, yeah, that's when Tatiana Suarez, when Chad Pennington was a all-pro level quarterback. And right now, sorry to all the Europeans who don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Shit, there's probably a lot of Americans who don't know what the hell I'm talking about. There's a lot of football fans that don't know what I'm talking about. Anyways, let's. I don't want to glaze over Weili for a second. So, you know how John Ack always says the consensus is the consensus. I was watching the early weigh-in show, and he says, "Oh, the consensus, greatest featherweight of all time, Alex Volkanovski." And then later on the same show, they had rapid questions, and they were like, "So who's the greatest featherweight of all time?" I'm like, "Well, then it's not consensus." Like, it's,
yeah,
you know, like, so is Weili the consensus greatest strawweight ever?
No, but it'll be tough ever to get a consensus about that, just because there are 4 women who are reasonably in the discussion, and Rose Namajunas is 5-1 against the other 3 of them. She's 2-0 against Joanna. She's 2-0 against Weili, and she's 1-1 against Jessica Andrade.
Yeah,
like and because of that, I think that Zhang will probably deserve to be considered the greatest strawweight of all time for a while before actually getting that recognition. It'll you know, it's the same thing that's happening in men's featherweight, honestly, where because the last couple of kings of the division have just wrecked the guy right before him, it's hard to look at them all in kind of any historical context. You have visions of Jose Aldo losing badly to Holloway twice. You have visions of Holloway losing 3 times to Volkanovski in close and then not close matchups. You have Topuria obliterating Volkanovski. It's hard to say after that, where one card has trumped another over and over again. Well, who's greater, Jose Aldo or Ilia Topuria if he defends the title again?
Sure.
But yeah, it's going to be a similar thing.
So right now, Joanna Jędrzejczyk has 5 title defenses. Weili has 4. That said, I think Weili is. I think it's Weili.
Oh,
just strictly the eyeball.
There's title defenses and there's title defenses. There's no Karolina Kowalkiewicz's and Jessica Pene's on.
Karolina Kowalkiewicz is actually one of her better title defenses. Don't forget about Valerie Letourneau. That was the title defense.
Yeah.
How about Mount Rushmore? Mount Rushmore of women's. To me, there's 3 easy spots. 3 easy spots, no brainers. Nunes, Cyborg, Valentina.
Nunes, Cyborg, Valentina. After that,
who's the 4th spot?
That's a really interesting question.
On paper, if we're going strictly accomplishments, to me, I'm putting Weili. If we're going on like, all right, if I'm in charge of women's MMA, I'm putting four women's faces on a mountain. I'm putting Ronda. I mean, no one did more for women's MMA. To me, she's the first person's face I'm putting on there. But going, being a purist, I'm not a purist, but being going from a purist sense, I'm putting Weili. Make an argument for somebody else.
You've already made the argument for Ronda. Like, she's more historically important, even if she's not more competitively relevant. And I mean, that whole division is not helped by the fact that she and Holm and Miesha Tate kind of played rock, paper, scissors with each other.
And I mean, if we're going, if we're Yeah, if we're not being purists and we're not going by accomplishment, we're going by like impact. Well, then Ronda shouldn't be on Mount Rushmore. She should have her own mountain somewhere. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
not sharing it with anybody else because the impact she's had is better, bigger than anybody ever. What was most? It wasn't impressive to me that I shouldn't say shocking. Like nothing really shocks me in the sport anymore that Weili won the wrestling battle against her. But what impressed me is how she crushed her spirit. Like I didn't expect her to really. I didn't, in a sense, I thought she could crush her spirit, but not as quick as she did.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it because, and we're talking about someone in Suarez that has faced enormous adversity and difficulty outside of the cage, but what's the hardest time she's had inside the cage?
The Answer fight, which was
the
a
fight
that she easily won. Still easily won.
Yeah, and there's that, and that she didn't destroy Montana De La Rosa quite as badly as we might have hoped, up a weight class, coming back for the first time in 4 years. But that's it. Like, did she lose a round to Ansarov? I can't remember.
No.
Like she might. So we're talking about someone who had not lost a single round on her way up, and all of a sudden she's fighting one of the most dominant fighters in the world. Like, it had to be discouraging. Like, I'm not surprised that something broke at some point there, and it's absolutely when the one element of the fight where she felt she should probably have the advantage turned out not to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're fighting Weili Zhang and you realize that you're not going to be the better wrestler, at least not after about 7 minutes, it's going to be either a long night or a short night, but not a good night.
Let's matchmake these girls now. Let's start with Tatiana. To me, it's if she's ever going to win the title, which as a betting man, I would not feel good. Like a lot of people are talking about her being done and washed. I still think she's going to be a bad stylistic matchup for a lot of people the next couple of years. Yeah. But her winning the title to me probably means Weili like leaves the division and vacates the title. Like that's her best bet. So what are you doing with her?
This is going on the assumption that there are no injury difficulties and she is good to fight sometime in the next 3 to 6 months. You have to keep her close to the title picture because, she lost badly to Weili, but so does everybody. And right before that, she obliterated Jessica Andrade. Like giving her a matchup out of the top 6 or 7 just doesn't make sense. I think
which is exactly what I'm doing.
I put her. I either remake the Jandiroba fight. I put her against Mackenzie Dern. But I put her in a fight where if she wins in clear fashion, it's not ridiculous to talk about putting her back in the title picture. Or if the person beats her, it's a serious feather in the cap of somebody that's already in the title picture. Again, like Jandiroba or Dern.
She might lose that Dern fight.
A couple of people said that. Dev put it that way. I'm thinking she wins a terrible kickboxing match against Dern, but she might lose a terrible kickboxing match against Dern. Certainly, if Dern tries to take her down and she jumps a guillotine, she deserves everything that happens after that.
Yeah. So I just want to get her to win. If I'm her, I'm like, if I'm the UFC, I'm like, we gotta. If I'm the UFC and Weili loses the division, I want Tatiana Suarez to become my champion because of the story, the big moment. I'm getting her the easiest win possible. Give me Tisha Torres. Like, dig up Tisha Torres and let her beat up Tisha Torres. Weili, let's do this not how the UFC. This is in case this is people's first time ever watching this. When we matchmake, we don't do. This is who we think the UFC is going to do. This is like with a supreme being. Nobody has a say. They neither fighter can deny it. I'm giving Weili. I love Manon Farrow. The girl's been waiting for a title shot forever. she's gonna wait even longer. I'm booking Valentina Shevchenko versus Weili.
I am absolutely a-okay with that, and I'm not normally one for pushing for champs to go outside their division, but she's coming up on having cleaned out the division. There are deserving challengers, but none of them are that compelling. I'd be fine if the UFC wants to make that, and off the cuff, I might favor Weili. I don't know. If they're going to match her in the division, like, I think it's probably Jandiroba next. She's won 4 straight.
They don't want her. Well, she's got a matchup. She's fighting Yan.
No, she's right for Yan Xiaonan. Like, if she gets past Yan, she's the obvious choice. If Yan beats her, it's not as obvious. So, yeah, I know the UFC is doing what they can to slow roll Virna Jandiroba. She is a grindy wrestler and top position grappler who is not marketable in most of the accustomed or traditional ways, is just how I'll put that.
Yeah. I think they do Dern. I think they've always wanted the UFC to have, Dern as a champion for many reasons. I think Dern's the one that's going to get the title shot. But I'm doing Weili up against Valentina Shevchenko. And you know what I'm doing? I'm making it the pay-per-view main event.
I'd love to see
maybe
it.
you know what? Shevchenko is a world traveler.
Mm-hmm.
Put it in China. Like they did with Jessica Andrade early in the morning. Like, I don't think it was a pay-per-view. It was like there was an ESPN card at like 5 a.m. or something. Let him headline a card in China.
Sure.
All right. So guys, we spent a lot of time on the main comment. We're probably gonna do the prelims a lot quicker than we normally do, because if we're being honest, the prelims are basically a fight night prelims. So
no, they're basically a Dana White's Contender Series episode.
And then some are ended really quick, like the one we got to talk about first. Justin Tafa took on Taliesin Teixeira. Taliesin Teixeira ran right through Justin Tafa, winning by first round knockout. This dude's like 8 feet tall. He just ran through a guy who's had not a world beater, but has had some success recently in the UFC. He's starting to believe in Taliesin Teixeira.
I said this on the preview where, I picked Tafa by first round knockout, and I said, I hate picking unranked heavyweight fights, because if you're wrong, you're going to be horribly wrong in a way that makes it sound like you have no idea what you're talking about or have never watched MMA before. But yeah, I picked Tafa to knock out Teixeira in the first round, but it was like 60-40, and the other most likely outcome was this. I didn't expect the tallest fighter in the UFC to crush one of the shortest heavyweights in the UFC just in the phone booth. That was nice. Because, with a fighter with his build, if you're going to ask if I believe in him, there are 2 things that I'm going to check. One, how is his takedown defense / inside striking defense? And 2, how's his head movement? And I figured his lack of head movement would tell on him that he was just going to get Stefan Struve. But I still don't see him as a future top 10 guy, but honestly, I have no idea.
Yeah.
He has fought past the midpoint of the first round once in his entire career. Justin Tafa is probably like the 30th or 40th best heavyweight in the world. And he's the first guy that Teixeira has fought that was in the top 100 heavyweights in the world. I had no idea. That's it.
Yeah, making the top 10 in the UFC rankings, to me, that's not the big of an accomplishment at heavyweight. Like Tai Tuivasa at one point was like a top 10 heavyweight. So, he's young for heavyweight, getting knockouts. Good for him. Yeah. I'll say this: there was some people upset about the stoppage. He complained about the stoppage. Tafa complained about the stoppage. This stoppage was a lot better than a stoppage we'll talk about early, the first fight of the night, but we'll get to that later. Co-main event, Jimmy Crute took. I'm sorry, co-main event. What am I talking about? Another prelim fight, main card fight. Jimmy Crute took on Adolfo Bellato. The fight was ruled a majority draw, with one of the judges giving the fight to Jimmy Crute. We think, and the other 2 judges give it to Adolfo, giving a draw, excuse me. Absolutely great fight. It was really fun, entertaining war. I had it 29-27 for Crute. I'm okay with anybody who went with the draw. How did you score it?
I scored at the draw.
Okay.
Yeah, I gave Crute a 10-8 round in the first round. I gave Bellato the second and third.
Okay, so the only difference I gave Crute the second, but I will say this, and again, like I have no issue with anybody who gave it to Bellato. That round was really close. I feel like a draw, even though Bellato came in as the favorite, it felt more like a win for him, based on his ability to recover and actually fight a fight that he was losing early on and win those battles. And then to me, I feel like it was the complete. I feel like even though Crute was the one who got the scorecard by one of the judges, got my scorecard for win, it felt like a loss because think about it. You're this prospect that they've been hyping for a really long time. You really had a fallen off recently. You had this retirement. You come back, you have this new fervor for life, and I guess you became a Christian and everything. You get in your home country, they have the whole embedded behind you, they put you on the main card. You put in a 10-8 round right in the first round, and then you don't even win. Like, to me, that's really poor performance by Jimmy Crute.
It really is, and I'm glad he's back because win or lose, his fights are generally entertaining. And again, he doesn't even turn 29 for a couple more weeks. This is a division where multiple guys have fought for and even held the title at 40. Like Glover Teixeira was over 40. Jan Blachowicz was pushing 40. Crute could continue to improve for another 5 years. He'd be 33, 34 in 5 years, and he could continue to fight at a similar level for 10 years. Like I want Crute to stick around, but thus far, he remains a wildly inconsistent fighter. He is Michael Johnson with a mullet. Like when I said this on the preview. When your record in the UFC includes a late third round submission of Paul Craig, which is the ground equivalent of head kicking Cro Cop, but then you also got guillotined by Alonzo Menafield, one of the worst ground fighters in the division. Yeah, you are inconsistent, and that's Jim Crute.
Yeah, he's like the Kirk Cousins of MMA. Yeah. He even has a Christianity thing going for him. So, like Kirk Cousins. Before that, we'll have to take a pause on the prelims. The UFC announced Israel Adesanya versus Kelvin Gastelum fight is in the Hall of Fame. Absolutely, I mean, was a no-brainer.
No-brainer.
I mean, incredible fight. I can't remember which fight was after it, but this was the co-main event. There was 2 title fights. I remember the title fight in the main event was an absolute banger. And I don't remember what it was. And it got overshadowed by this fight because that's how great this fight was.
Yeah, it's
was it Holloway Poirier won?
Well, it's interesting you should mention that. I am totally
for some reason that's standing out to me, but that might not have been. But I remember it was.
It was Poirier. Nice. It was Poirier Holloway in the main event, and the feature fight before
two. I'm sorry. Yes, 2.
Like Poirier Holloway 2.
Yeah, hold on. Yes, but I'm talking about they're like you're right.
The lightweight Poirier Holloway.
But like this is like when Max Holloway really was Max Holloway, when Dustin Poirier really was Dustin, not when they were like prelim fighters. Yeah. So but good catch there, Dev. That was an absolute banger. So before that, Jake Matthews took on Francisco Prado as the opening fight of the pay-per-view. Matthews winning a unanimous decision. Matthews looked really good on the feet, much faster. He kept catching him coming in. He led a lot of like uppercuts as Prado was trying to get inside and crash the pockets. What I'll say about Matthews, I mean, he's still a young fighter, he's been in the UFC forever. I love that he has made such improvements on his stand-up. But I think his stand-up still needs to be a compliment to his wrestling. They need to go back and forth, and he's really abandoned wrestling 2 fights in a row. I mean, he won both fights and looked good in both fights. But I'm worried if he doesn't realize this in the long run, this actually might hurt him.
That's kind of an interesting – I mean, that's an interesting point, man.
I mean, it's always a good thing to become better stand-up. And I've said this a million times. You heard me say this. As you get older, it is hard to wrestle.
Yes.
I mean, which goes back to the Tatiana Suarez take. He called for a fight with Neil Magny, and I know we weren't doing matchmaking for Matthews.
Very appropriate.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good call-out. I don't know if it's stylistically a good call-out, but like where you are in rankings and you're trying to, make a push to become ranked. One big thing that stood out to me in this fight also was Matthews was just so much bigger than Prado.
And a couple people have commented in the chat that Prado's too small for 170. I think it's early to make that judgment because, I mean, he gave up a lot of height and wingspan, but he's a burly guy, and it is possible to excel at 170 with that kind of general size and build.
And he's super young too. So as he gets older, he could put on more size. But on the same sense, he could just be a tweener. And I saw some people putting this out there. I think it might have been Dane who put out there that like get rid of 170 and just have a 165, 175 pound. Like, no, I hate that. What happened? And I know you're old school like me. They used to be in the Sherdog forums. It was a curse word to add weight classes because we never want to be boxing. We want to have a million weight classes because it was going to water everything down. Yeah. And now it's at a 180 where I'm the boomer saying, like, dude, like, what are you guys talking about? Don't add weight classes. That's bad. And they're like, oh, shut up, old man.
Here's the thing. Say the UFC changed things and said, okay, starting on July 1st, 2025, like second half of this year, it'll be 155, 165, 175, 185. You know what? That means at the end of the year, Islam Makhachev will be the 155 and 165 pound champ.
Yeah, we'd have that going on. Yeah, then you'd have to add a 195.
And you know what? Dricus du Plessis would be the 185 and 195 pound champ, unless like he and Alex Pereira. I mean, like it would be a boxing type thing where boxing has weight classes, every 7 or 8 pounds, but you just end up with people like Manny Pacquiao and
winning like 8 titles.
Winning titles in 8 different divisions. And the same goes up the scale. Like James Toney won belts everywhere from like 160 to weighing 240 pounds. Like,
or we'd get watered down champions. Like people we talk about, we don't want to see Sean Strickland fight for the title again. Yeah, but now he's fighting for the 95 pound title. Against Yuri Prohaska or something.
Well, no, I mean they make Sean Strickland versus Brendan Allen too because they fought first time at 195 and
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
there you go. So that was the main card. Let's go to the prelims. One of the fights that both you and I were really excited about: Jack Jenkins versus Gabriel Santos. Santos winning by 3rd round submission. Take away one moment where, really 1 second where Santos got high kicked. He absolutely was fantastic. He dominated this fight. Santos looked fantastic.
I even gave him the first round. Despite the clean knockdown from a head kick, I gave Santos the first round. Give me like 4.5 minutes of dominance, 2 locked in sub attempts versus 1. And it was a solid knockdown, but like, especially on replay, you can see Santos's eyes never went googly. He's looking at him the whole time. He lands like this. He gets back to his feet. Like no question it hurt, but he wasn't in imminent danger of the fight being stopped. It was one really good strike against one-way traffic the other way.
And in fairness, too, you're a little biased when it comes to Santos because, you both got the stylish hair on, you both got the clean shave, young, I wanted
to make sure everyone knew which is my favorite Topuria brother. That's why I got like the fade, like nice and tight today. Yeah.
I mean, you guys go out, hit the streets, pick up the ladies together with a cleaned up shave, Oh,
yeah.
I mean, this kid looks good. I mean, he's only 2-2 in the UFC, but I mean, he passed the eyeball test. But
2-2, but again, he debuted against an undefeated top 10 fighter in Laron Murphy and gave him a hell of a fight. Like,
could be a top 5 guy.
Yeah, like
if not. No. I was gonna say it's not the realm of possibility he could win the title, but
And having
No,
said
that's
that,
a good yes.
This fight does not make me cut bait on Jenkins necessarily either. Like you and I are pretty high.
No, but I am a little more concerned. And I'll get to him in a second. But what I liked about Santos is we saw every part of his game. His striking, I mean, he front kicks him in the face. You saw his takedowns. He got multiple takedowns. He had sub attempts off his back, and then he finishes with a submission late in the third. And he showed cardio by be able to get a late submission. That's what I thought, like checking all the boxes for Santos. To me, maybe I'm overacting, but he looks like in a really obviously murder's row type division, he looks like a future top 15 guy.
He does. He's going to be someone that, you know, maybe kind of like Diego Lopez comes and it doesn't take him long to start making serious noise. Like we didn't go in advance and talk about matchmaking for this guy, but I probably would have come up with a match for him that if he won convincingly would have had him on the doorstep of a top 15 matchup by the end of this year. Like there's no reason to make him waste time with the Jack Jenkins of the world at this point. He's at the next level.
Yeah, and I mean Jack Jenkins was a guy that we were really excited. I mean, everybody was excited about not that long ago. And another thing I liked about Santos, like you talked about when he got hurt and he got dropped and he recovered, he didn't panic. Like he was like dropped and then into a triangle choke like 5 seconds later. So that's something that like the highest level guys do. Before that, I'm dropping my notes. Tom Nolan took on what's it called? Yeah. Slavakos over here, winning by a unanimous decision. Really, really fun scrap. I'll say this. Tom Nolan has really grown on me. I was so impressed by him. His maturity in the fight. You know, he was winning a stand-up battle against Borisov in a fight that was, you know, I mean, there was some moments on the ground, but mostly contested on the feet. That was really impressive to me. So much variety in striking. He hits a lot harder than I originally gave him credit for. His kicking game was on point. And he really kept every time Borisov would come forward, he would like get his offense going first and kind of break up the rhythm of Borisov. Very like, I mean, their body structures are so different, and the way they fight is like this. How they like the skills is different, but the mindset has a very like Duplessis type mindset to me. I like Nolan going forward, and he's super young.
Me too. He's super young. Again, the kind of physical matchup problems that are basically impossible to prepare for. I don't know if his best future lies at 155 or 170, but I am definitely higher on him than I was, coming into this fight. I picked Borisov to beat him, even though I think I said on the preview, clearly Nolan has the way higher upside, but Borisov might be the wrong matchup right now. I'm still concerned with a lot of Nolan's habits on defense striking, just hands a little low, head going straight back. I could see him just getting walloped like James Vick, another super, super tall 155er that didn't move his head. But it's not happening now. And yeah, you're right. Like for him to be winning a striking battle and mixing in just enough of the wrestling is just brilliant stuff. Yeah, good stuff from Tom Nolan.
And to me, like Slavakos, I feel like he's improved his ground game, his takedown defense, his submission defense so much. But unfortunately for him, it feels like, it's one of these like ratings like a video game where if you add a little bit of this, you have to take off somewhere else. And it's like it's almost like his striking is going down. He's not this deadly one punch hitter, put you out with, he lost a little bit of speed here and there. So he improved. He really needed to prove one area. Unfortunately, his biggest strength isn't, as deadly as it once was. Speaking of good strikers, Wayne Kong took on Bruno Brazil. Wayne Kong winning in a unanimous decision. I think this fight should have been on the main card. It wasn't the most entertaining fight, but I mean, when you think about from a talent sense where they stand in rankings and everything, I feel like this fight should have been on the main card.
I can understand the argument for that, especially because 125 being where it's at right now, this one had a lot more relevance to it than your average unranked matchup where somebody's a 5-1 favorite. But yeah, agreed. I picked the upset here. It was a massive upset I was picking. It was a little bit of a flyer, but I'll stand by it because going into it, I was like, this doesn't feel like it should be a minus 500 favorite. And if a fight feels like a pick 'em to me and one of them is a massive favorite, I'm going with the upset just on general principle. But after about the first minute and a half of the fight, Brazil had nothing for one. It's almost the striking equivalent of the co-main event where Brazil did some smart things early on, like took advantage of the fact that Wong doesn't really defend leg kicks very well, had Wong kind of clearly uncomfortable. And then Wong kind of dialed it in, and Brazil instantly stopped doing all the things that she had any success with. And
she was having a lot of success, like very quickly. It would, the equivalent would be like, when I was going to say tomorrow night, now it's tonight. The Eagles say they go down the field, they score a touchdown, they hand the ball to Saquon Barkley 7 times in the first drive. He goes for 60 yards and a touchdown, and then they don't give him a handoff for the rest of the game. Probably not the best strategy, And she just completely abandoned her kicks, and some of that was, Wayne Kong's offense started really kind of like coming along, and obviously you got to think a little more defensive minded than you were, which obviously is an issue. But also, how do you watch someone who just got taken, dropped and submitted really quickly in her last, not quickly, but in a quick moment in her last fight, and don't even try to get the fight to the ground one time? This is one thing I've said about Brazil in my previews is she's got a lot of skills, but if game plan A isn't working, she never goes to game plan B. Like, she has no game plan B. She just keeps trying the same thing. And Kong, I don't want to say this is all in Brazil. Kong's a really good striker. She looks very promising despite her age. Accurate, a lot of tools, especially, she's someone, and this is what, I'm worried about based on her age. I'm worried about her athleticism will decline because she's very athletic and quick, but
I think sneaky power. It's tempting to overrate her power on the one hand because she lamped Victoria Leonardo, but she's not your average stereotypical light hitting women's flyweight either. Like, she's got that kind of power that it clearly changes her opponent's game plan when she lands a couple of clean punches. And that kind of power is just as rare at 125 as actual knock you out power. Like, yeah, I underestimated Wong. Good point you make about Brazil, because not having a plan B that you can switch over to smoothly after 3 camps with the fighting nerds is not a good look.
Yeah, that's a good point. Before that, we had a matchup of Team Topuria versus Team Volkanovski. The little I don't want to say they're students because one's a brother, but
the older brother at that.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
The lesser version. Alexandre Topuria made his UFC debut against everyone's favorite fighter, Kobe Thickness. Kobe Thickness. I don't know if you're like an embedded guy, but like I do it all. Like when it's pay-per-view week, I always, about Monday, I watch the countdown show, and then I have like an order. Like if I get behind, I still have to do it in order. Like I watch Embedded 1, then Embedded 2, then I do the media day. Then, like I have it. Like I try not to like do all the embeddeds and like get ahead. So I try to have this like how they would come out. My man Thickness, even Embedded loved the Thickness. He got a lot of time on the a lot of time on Embedded. So, but he was just outclassed. So Topuria looked good. Like not sensational, but well rounded. That was one thing. He was crushing cans. His striking like much better than what I've seen in the regional scene. Just chasing around Thickness, chasing around the cage. And so I saw a lot of people being like, yeah, he's good, but he's not his brother. But I mean, like,
nobody's his brother.
I get it.
His brother might be the best pound for pound fighter in the world right now.
Like the bar set so high.
Not the greatest based on past achievements, but the best fighter in the world right now, pound for pound, like the most dominant, the one that I'm most confident will win his next fight, whatever it is, might be Ilia Topuria. So nobody is him, but Alexandre Topuria proved at least that he belongs in this division.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I think thickness probably does too.
Yeah, I feel it like it's a little bit of Bronny James situation. Now, I'm not a basketball guy, and obviously LeBron James is one of the greatest ever.
Yeah.
He, I'm not gonna pretend like I know his son's game, but from my understanding, is he may not have been NBA level. Again, maybe he is, maybe he's not. I'm not gonna pretend like I know. But that said, there's a shitload of basketball players in the world trying to make the NBA, and he's still better than 99.9% of them. And that's kind of I feel like about Taporia.
Held to unrealistic standards because of the name.
Because of his dad.
It's kind of like when, go back maybe 5 years in Bellator when you had AJ McKee and Aaron Pico training alongside Kimbo Slice's kid.
Oh yeah,
and Baby Slice wasn't quite. Yeah,
it's kind of like my son carrying my name and then going into wrestling. It's like, dude, this kid. I mean, the kid has no chance.
Get back to me when the Shillan kid is an undefeated mixed martial artist.
I mean, the standard I've set for this poor kid.
No. Yeah. Having said that, he's 9, right?
He just turned 10. He
just turned 10. I mean, I would put him in the top 15 fighters of all time from Rhode Island, but
that's I'll tell you right now, he knows more wrestling than some of the fighters in the UFC. I'll tell you that. He's not bad. He's going places. He
takes down Andre Sukumtat, a couple times, and
he probably not yet. But when he's about 130. When he's about the same size as Sukumtat, he definitely be able to take him down. Yeah. Speaking of takedowns, somewhere our man Jeff Blatnick was up in heaven smiling down on Taporia when he hit the suplex.
Yeah, and Blatnick would not be doing his. That wasn't a suplex. Like that was about as textbook a German suplex as I've seen in high level MMA, maybe in the UFC ever.
Since Dan Severn on Anthony Macias.
Okay, so in 25 years, then
yeah, I'm going way back.
Yeah.
That was I was pretty. I did get pretty pumped by that, dude. You want to see a good suplex? And by the way, you can check out I did interview a first Sherdog. I don't do a lot of individual interviews anymore. I mean, I just time wise, but I interviewed Kennedy Blades, who was a Olympic silver medalist. She hit in the Olympics. She hit a belly to back suplex. It better than this one. Better than this one. Anyways, before that. Rongju took on Cody Steele. Rongju winning by unanimous decision. First of all, round 1, I think it was like
round of the
year candidate. I threw it up in our chat. I don't know if everybody saw it. Incredible round 1. Both guys had moments. We didn't pick the right person, but I feel like we broke down this fight pretty well. Like one thing you
broke down this fight brilliantly. This was, pun fully intended, the most wrong I was about anything on this card, because I flat out said it's weird that Rongju is only 24 years old, and I feel as though he's already topped out and he is what he is and that's what he's going to be, because he actually has been improving, and he's been improving in important and applicable ways. Like, he is a pretty good-sized lightweight with even better reach than you would expect for his height, and he's actually learned striking fundamentals that allows him to fight and outfight against faster, aggressive fighters. Like, I figured Cody Steele was going to be able to get into the pocket, hit him with hard punches, take him down if he wanted, and none of that happened. Like, Rong pretty much kept Steele at Rong's preferred striking distance. He looked great either securing or fighting off takedowns as he chose. Like, he just flat out dominated somebody that I thought of and still think of as a pretty solid prospect.
Yeah, I'm not, jumping off the bandwagon. I think it's a little bit of both. I think he's not as good as a prospect as some people had him, but also I think Rongju is probably better than a lot of people viewed, myself included. The one thing I do like that I think was a good breakdown is I did say that Steele admires his work. And he was getting, and the broadcast, to their credit, did a really good job on this fight. Was talking about that, like he was getting in and not getting out. He was getting hit over and over, and he kept shortening his own punches, pulling back his punches, and Rongju was connecting him with the left hand, and it really stopped all of Steele's like pressure. Steele wanted to get in. I mean, you see how he came out early. He was getting in his face, throwing big shots, and then he kept getting tagged. He stopped pressuring. It was suddenly became like this mid-range kickboxing match instead of being, a pocket battle. And honestly, I'm watching him, blasting with the left side. The funny thing, he's even worse defensively coming from the right side. He drops his lead right hand over and over again. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, he's lucky that Rong Zhu is such a left-hand dominant guy. Because if he had a right high kick, this fight is over. This is, yeah. The bigger concern to me is I don't know if maybe the moment got too much for Steele, but he abandoned, he took Rong Zhu down, and Rong Zhu was able to scramble out, but he abandoned his grappling really early in this fight, and I felt like he really limited his chances of winning because of that.
I agree, and you mentioned that his aggression on the feet kind of dried up, and whenever he tried things in the second half of the fight, Rong just made him pay right away. A lot of the story of the striking in the second half of the fight was Steele landing a single strike, sometimes a good one, and eating 3 in return, and then just stepping back. And you realize that on some level he's like, well, I can't do that again.
Yeah,
and yeah. It kept the balls just rolling downhill. Like, dude, when you've got Rong Zhu doing an Ali shuffle in front of you in the third round, like he's Cody Garbrandt on Dominic Cruz or something, things have gone badly wrong. Again, pun fully intended.
Yeah. Before that, Kevin Jousset took on Jonathan Milcalf. Jonathan Milcalf winning by unanimous decision. Milcalf looked great, man. This is a guy that, there wasn't the tape didn't really jump what he did on the regional scene. The broadcast team kept mentioning that, and I want to shout out Austin Swam, who put this out. I agree with him. He's a really good follow on Twitter. He said this what happens when people are 25 years old. They make improvements, and that's what we saw. They're at starting to reach their peak years. And I mean, and Jousset, he never had a plan B. We talked about Bruno Brazil. I mean, he just stayed in the range where Milcalf was just blasting him with kicks, and they were trying to exchange kicks, but Milcalf threw more and harder ones. I thought Jousset, you have this judo background, why aren't you grappling? They came back to the Steele fight, came back to this fight, 2 fights in a row. Bruno Brazil probably could have grappled a little bit, so really 3 fights in a row, where you have people that probably has a pretty big grappling advantage who don't use it. And it's concerning, which is I've said this before, I hope a guy like Bo Nickel doesn't do that. He stays with his wrestling and kind of what we were talking about, Matthews, where the grappling and the striking, they come together, they blend together. You should improve your weakness, but that ultimately should be a compliment. I think how Aljamain Sterling started adding striking to his game, where he did those long strike, but it was still just kind of get your hands up so you can come underneath.
Yeah.
Jousset has completely abandoned his judo, and I think it cost him big in this fight.
I completely agree. And, this is one that I picked it wrong. I think we both picked it wrong. And the thing is, I knew what Kevin Jousset does well, and I knew what Jonathan Milcalf did well. I just didn't expect it to work out the way it did once they actually clashed. I knew that Milcalf had a good kicking game and that he's probably going to be the faster guy, but with Jousset being the bigger guy, presumably the stronger one, and one with a solid background in clinch takedowns, I figured he'd eat a few kicks, and then most of this fight would take place within 2 feet of the cage wall somewhere, where he's either just muting him in the clinch or dropping him to the ground and doing work. Instead, no, he just kind of stayed out in space and got tagged up with kicks for 15 minutes. He lost. He deserved to lose. And welcome to the UFC, Jonathan Milcalf.
Yeah, he looked good. And making his UFC debut in the opener of the night, Quinlan Selke took on Ashton Jubilee. It only took him 19 seconds, but Selke won by first round TKO. I mean, could it be a better debut? You're fighting a UFC debut. You're in your home country. You're starting the card, and you start off with a bag of dropping a guy with one punch. I mean, wake up the crowd early morning on Sunday morning there in Sydney. I mean, what a debut for Selkid.
Fantastic. Ansel Jubilee was mad about the stoppage, but if you don't want the fight to be over in 20 seconds, bring your hands back.
I will say this. I do think it was a bad stoppage. I think it was true. I think he could have, because I know they said that he covered up, but like that is intelligently defending yourself. Like he got dropped and he knows a follow-up shot's coming. He right away grabs for his head, kind of timed it. And then when Selkid came close, he grabbed the leg and started coming up with a single.
Yeah. Jubilee, I agree. Like, I thought the fight should have been allowed to go on, but I don't think Jubilee was robbed of anything other than a really bad headache tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, his first punch knocked him. There's a very good chance he might get knocked out cold later on. So it's what I've said about last week. Sometimes when we have an early stoppage, you kind of rob both guys, like the winner too, because now the storyline isn't like, oh wow, what an incredible debut by Selkid. It's also Jubilee got robbed of. What a terrible stoppage. Well, Jubilee might have got up and got knocked out cold with a left hook seconds later. Mm-hmm. So anyways, like, guys, we've gone through all 12 fights. Let's do some of the fun stuff. I'll kill the Spence right away. I don't have anybody for the cut list.
Looking at this, honestly, I'm kind of with you, because the people that I would have cut off of a loss won. Like, yeah,
I thought about getting rid of Justin Tafa, but I'm like, it's heavyweights. They always need someone who can slug it out.
And again, he was in a pretty impossible situation in his last fight, and before that, he'd been on a good streak. So
yeah, and he's also like, he has a, when I think about certain people stand out in a region. He's one of those guys. You always stick him in that region. Filling the card out and stuff. So let's do dude seriously. Do you have any dude seriouslys?
I should have taken better notes about that, because I'm sure I had some, because I was smacking the middle of my own forehead repeatedly.
Yeah.
Tonight.
So you were recapping the card. So that is a lot of work on a Sunday night. So I'll give you some. Cody Steele in the second round, he shot his first takedown with 2 seconds left. Like, dude, seriously. Like, what are we gonna do with that takedown with 2? There was actually 2 seconds late shot. I'll do another Cody Steele. Cody Steele told the broadcast team that they used to train together, and I used to take him down and sub him very easily, and then doesn't look for a takedown or sub at all. Like, dude, seriously. Alexandre Pantoja telling the UFC after he just beat Kobe Thickness that the UFC should give him a contract. Like, dude, he's in the UFC. You just fought in the UFC. What are you talking? What do you think? It's a contender series match? Like, dude,
that was a weird one.
Like,
yeah,
give a contract. I just imagine like the Chiefs winning. They're like, oh, Patrick Mahomes, you're the MVP, and he's like, you know what? Saquon Barkley's a great player. NFL, give him a contract. What are you talking about? Only MMA. I love the UFC put the Adesanya Gastelum fight in the Hall of Fame, but dude, seriously, you gotta have Gastelum there if you're gonna do it. Like, you could have figured somehow. You pay him a shitload of money to go to Australia because we're gonna have you on the panel to answer questions to the crowd, and you shake some hands, and we'll give you 20 grand or something.
Tell them somebody opened a new tamale joint in Sydney, and they need a review.
Yeah. Like, dude, seriously. Bruce Buffer, dude, seriously. Like, why are you so bad at your job? They had the draw. For at least once, he didn't screw up like the draw and like call the draw first before you said one guy won 29-27. But he never said who got the 29-27, just 29-27. Like,
it's bad, man.
Dude, you have such an easy job. Like, dude, I'm sorry. People are gonna hate me for saying this. Bruce Buffer sucks. They should move on from him.
And really, like, that I'm on board with this, because he's had this job for over 20 years, and yeah, he needs to put energy in and get people excited. And obviously, people love him because they're yelling his catchphrases for him. But when you get down to it, your only job is to say people's names right and in the right order. And he has been calling Derek Cleary's name for like 15 years and never said it right once. Like, he's called 15 Israel Adesanya fights, and he still says Lagos, Nigeria wrong.
Yeah, when I say he sucks out, I'm not saying I would do better, because I wouldn't, because I butcher people's names all the time, but it's not my job. Like, how much time does he? I mean, it's not John Anik where you have to keep talking. You talk for what, 30 seconds a fight? You add. Yeah. I mean, how if you hit a stopwatch for how much talking he did tonight? 5 minutes.
5 minutes, maybe 10 on the tops, and all of it except for the fighters' names is just it's Mad Libs. You're saying the exact same thing.
Yeah.
You know, the name of the division, the name of the fighters, then afterwards the result of the fight. The only thing that changes is the people's names. That's the only thing you really need to be on top of and get right. And he doesn't even try, because if he tried, he would have gotten Derek Cleary's name right by now. Like, it's offensive how bad it is. Anyway.
And my last dude, seriously, this is like positive, dude, seriously. Daniel Cormier announcing that his high school team that he coaches, the Gilroy Wrestling Club, going 14 for 14 league, every single individual title in the league championship. Like, dude, seriously, like, that's pretty impressive. I'm not sure. I know it's not state or anything in divisional, but league champion, that's pretty good. I mean, they're a top 10 like in America, but still, dude, seriously, that's pretty impressive.
And I know that was a tournament, but like, there should be the equivalent of like a tech fall for dual meets, where if one team wins like the first eight matches, they just cancel the rest of it and call it good.
All right, let's get to let's do the awards.
Okay.
Do we have awards?
Somebody had to win them, right? Bonuses, yes. We have. It looks like we have a fight of the night and 2 performances of the night.
Okay. I don't know what they are, but I actually, for once, wrote down what I think they should have been. The fight tonight, I'm going to go with. It was fairly one-sided, but there was some pretty great moments. I'm going to go Rong Zhu versus Cody Steele. That what I would have done for the fight of the night. Performances. You got to give it to Sure. I mean, he just ran right in and knocked out Tafa. And yeah, it was an early stoppage, but still, you land one punch, knockout in 19 seconds. Give me the Cell Kid. That's what I would do. Do you agree? Before you say what they are, do you agree with the performance bonuses?
I am fine with the performance bonuses, and you picked them exactly right. So the one like the one pretty good fight of the night that had a round of the year candidate, one fight of the night, and then 2 guys each picked up $50,000 for under 60 seconds of work. So,
and that's what you would have done? You would have given to those 2?
Yeah, I mean, I looked it over and I'm like,
I mean, the rest of the guys didn't get stopped. I mean, Rong Zhu had a great performance, but I guess Santos got a really late stoppage. But the guys finished them in under 30 seconds each. Like, that,
right?
Easy.
Giving like Weili Zhang might have had the most impressive single performance by anybody.
Sure.
But also, $50K at this point in her career is not life-changing money to her. Teixeira and Salkild and Steele were all debuting fighters that just effectively doubled the amount of their signed contract for the year.
Yeah, and I think who Weili fought, the way the fight, it was played out. It's hard to have like huge moments against Tatiana Suarez. Like if it was mostly a stand-up fight and she was rocking her every second, and 50-42s or something like that, maybe she gets it in decision. When you go to decision, like it was gonna be really hard for her to get a bonus. All right, let's do the Bulls and the Bears. The Bulls and Bears are a stock market reference. You want to be on the Bulls list. You don't want to be on the Bears list. Do you want to go positive or negative?
Let's go positive. Let's pull some redeeming features out of this card.
Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Do you mind?
Mind me go first?
Yeah, go first.
All right. My number 3, I'm going to go with Tom Nolan. only 24 years old, but he's on a 3-fight winning streak in the UFC. Just picked up the biggest win of his career, and not just who he beat, but how he beat him. This guy's super young. I really like Tom Nolan moving forward. My number 2, again. Oh man, I screwed up my numbers. I know you're gonna have Weili on your list, so I'll leave her off mine because I screwed up my numbers. But I'm gonna go with Taliesin Teixeira. I mean, dude's 8-0. He gets a TKO win on a pay-per-view card. Third from the top too. Like the placement of the card. Like he was set up in a really good position. So I'll give Teixeira. Oh, and I realized I did not screw up my numbers. The reason why I did not give Weili Zhang my number 1 spot is because I gave our whole country the number 1 spot as Chinese MMA went 3-0 on the night. Weili pulled the upset win, defending her title. Rongzhu pulled an upset win, pretty big upset win. And then Wang Kong, she was a big favorite. She came through. So China MMA went 3-0 on the night. So Chinese MMA is my Bulls. What do you got, Ben?
I agree with all of yours. I don't see any reason to pile 3 more on top of there, but yeah, got to throw Zhang Weili out there because in hindsight, it all seems obvious. And we just did probably a full 25 minutes of post-mortem on how badly she worked Tatiana Suarez. But just to repeat and reiterate, she was the UFC's number 3 pound for pound woman. She was Sherdog's number 2 pound for pound, or sorry, other way around. She was the UFC's number 2 pound for pound woman. She's Sherdog's number 3 pound for pound woman. She went into this fight as a betting underdog to a 10-0 fighter who had not fought in over a year. Kind of like Michael Jordan in the Last Dance documentary. I could just see her sitting there like, and I took that personally. Left no doubt.
Yeah.
And if one of the most dominant fighters in the sport needed any boost to her stock, she got it tonight. She kind of reminded us all what time it was. So she's a bull for sure. And I will throw, actually I do have 2 more. Jonathan Mikhailov. I didn't pick him to win. And I think his performance was more impressive than Quillan Salkeld. Quillan Salkeld got a blistering but slightly early stoppage over a terrible fighter. Jonathan Mikhailov schooled a middling but kind of underrated fighter for 3 solid rounds.
Yeah,
that tells me more about his future in the division. And I'll throw Gabriel Santos out there.
Fantastic.
You know, he was favored, but he made an easy night of work out of Jack Jenkins, which is not something I would have picked to happen. He looks great, and all of a sudden, featherweight is wide open for new faces to show up in a way that bantamweight, lightweight, welterweight are not. So good time to be the right guy.
Yeah, we both picked Santos to win, but we both said that the line should have been closer. And in fact, it should have been. He should have been even bigger favorite. I mean, he looked fantastic. Let's go to the Bears. The Bears are the list you do not want to be on. These are people who stock people or storylines whose stock went down. Ben, I'll let you kick it off.
Okay. To kick it off, I'll throw Justin Tafa out there. Justin Tafa is probably never going to be a champ or even a top 10 fighter. Like they have the same basic build. They're from the same part of the world, but he's not
tied. Champ, maybe.
Yeah. He's not even tied to Ivasa, but to get just blistered in close quarters by a 6'8" dude in like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
You got to win this kind of fight or at least make a slugfest out of it to stick around on the roster as a 500 heavyweight for long. And he's under 500 in the UFC now. So I'll throw that out there.
One thing I like that Teixeira did is that he like faked. He went for a takedown, then went over the top. Tafa was like worried about getting taken down. Next minute he's getting blasted with shots. That was nice.
It was nasty stuff, like just nasty knee up the middle. Like tall guys throwing knees in the clinch is smart work, and then that level elbow that just took all the fight out of Tafa. Like it did to Tafa what Strickland getting his nose busted should have done to him, because Tafa just melted once that elbow landed.
Mm-hmm.
Like he got mad afterwards, but he didn't want to fight anymore after that thing hit him right across the bridge of the nose. I'll throw out Slava Borshov. He's improved a little bit. You know, like he's not the complete just one-dimensional like knockover paper cutout that he was a year or two ago, but he's not improving fast enough. And the Nolan fight was, I thought, a decent chance for him to get a decent win that would age well. If he's on the wrong side of that, there aren't too many winnable fights for him at lightweight in the UFC. And got to throw Tatiana Suarez in there, and it breaks my heart. Like, I have no personal stake in either of these women, but as what would have been a fantastic story, and just as a vindication of all the shit that Suarez went through to get to this spot. Like, yeah, like she was kind of squeezed into the title shot. They pulled her out of a fight she was already booked for, but for her to even be in a position where they could do that is a triumph for a woman that's been out for like 3 and 4 years at a time, and it ended so badly with her not just losing, but just looking demoralized and having it put on her in the realm where she is supposed to be elite. Bad night of work for Tatiana Suarez.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously just her first career loss, but she looks so outclassed. And you know what? And I should have said this when we were actually talking about the fight. I do believe that at one time Tatiana Suarez was the best fighter in the world, and I don't think she'll ever have that moment. She needed to fight the Weili Zhang that was held down by Rose Namajunas like 4 years ago. Like Tatiana Suarez was probably the best fighter in the world 4 years ago. Unfortunately, she didn't get the fight 4 years ago.
Yeah. So. When you think of how much headway and what a historical place Carla Esparza made for herself with a much reduced version of a similar skill set.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Healthy Tatiana Suarez would have wrecked shop in the UFC
that's
in
a really
2016, 2018, 2019.
Yeah, when Weili had like a glaring hole.
Yeah.
All right, I'll give you some extra. Yeah, I'll give you some extra ones. I agree with all yours. How about Jack Jenkins? This is a guy that had a lot of hype. Again, he was the underdog, but this guy, we were getting excited about him. He's now lost 2 out of his last 3. And it's not that just he lost, because he lost to a really good guy, but how he lost. Yeah, he had this big moment. He landed a high kick, and then it was nothing. He was blanked the rest of the way. And I wonder if he's a little bit of a front runner. Which I hope I'm wrong. I'm just kind of asking the question. I'm not making a statement,
but you hope so, because whatever success he's going to have in the UFC is going to be from being kind of scrappy and just hard to put away and overachieving. So if it turns out that he's not that guy, wins are going to be hard to come by.
Yeah, absolutely. My number 2, again, I mean, this guy's still super young, but I mean, you got to stop winning. He's winless in his last 5 fights. He has not won a fight since 2020. Jim Crute, he's winless in his last 5 fights. I mean, there's 2 draws in there, but Jimmy Crute not looking too good. And my number 1, Sean Strickland. I mean, dude looked terrible tonight. I mean, absolutely goes all the way to the other side of the world. He's, the worst thing is he goes to the other side of the world and he's the fan favorite, like going crazy for him. Mind you, this is the era where he won the title, beating a guy from that area, and he won over the crowd and became the fan favorite there. And
after a week of talking mad shit about the country he was in, like it was the equivalent of like back in the 90s, like when The Rock would just insult like WWE house crowds, like he'd be in Pittsburgh and just talk about what a shithole Pittsburgh is, and they just love it.
Yeah,
like if he could pick up that kind of heat, he might be smarter than I'm giving him credit for.
Yeah, I mean, I'm done seeing Sean Strickland headline UFC pay-per-views. So, all right, Ben, what was your grade for the card?
D. It wasn't great on paper. It wasn't great on paper. The main event was a rematch that looked like a rematch, and aside from a quick finish in the first fight and a pretty good fight in the last fight, the undercard was terrible. Like.
Yeah, I went C-. The only reason the fight of the round of the year award, a couple quick knockouts, I give it like C-. But yeah, generally speaking, we kind of feel the same way. Hardest question tonight is always who's your listener of the night? Who's your listener tonight? There's a lot of good talk, a lot of people here.
Yeah, including what I think may have been some new people. If Evan Granado is not new, I apologize for not remembering you. Eric Fursick, who I believe just left, made a great debut appearance. I'm giving it to Ninja Kitty for, I forget the old school reference they dropped that just killed me. But
All right.
yeah, like I remember thinking about halfway into the show, okay, like Ninja Kitty is in the lead.
He always has great
He
ones.
he or she, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna get. Yeah, you mentioned a lot of fun people, and we always appreciate the people in the chat. You guys are always great. I'm gonna give it to one. He or she was trolling me, but he got the exact response that he wanted, and that's a win because that's what he wanted. So he won that battle. I'm gonna give it to. I think it's pronounced Maya. It's Maya with
Maya or Mia, yeah, like
a couple of extra
yeah,
A's at the end. MIAAA.
a.
I will give you the listener of the night. So before we go,
Oh, well, no, I need to give a worst listener of the night award because not one, but two of my flesh and blood children showed up to make fun of me for
oh
shaving.
nice.
Mike and Adam are both catching it next time I see him in person. So
Oh,
yeah,
I didn't realize another one of your kids
yeah.
it was in the chat. Nice. Very good. Very good. Ben, put you on the spot. What's your prediction for the Super Bowl?
Chiefs in a razor close game decided by a terrible call in the last 5 minutes. They're gonna Chiefs it up.
Yeah, that's exactly how it goes. So, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna go with the Eagles. They got screwed 2 years ago with one of the worst no pass interference calls ever. I'm gonna say the Eagles win. Give me the Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly. So there you guys have it. We've recapped all fights of UFC 312. We believe it's the most in-depth recap show in the entire world. We thank you guys for listening and staying up late, 3:22 a.m. with us. We'll be back previewing UFC Cannonier versus Rodriguez, and we'll be back a week from now recapping all that action too. So make sure you check out the preview and the recap. I'm sorry about my voice. I've been sick, but Ben looks clean shaved. He was very professional for both of us. So we'll see you guys next week.